Wayne is a man who has been instrumental in reshaping the way our farmlands look.
He saw right away in the 70s the impact of agriculture on the environment and climate.
It's been an absolutely huge change.
I was born here in southern Alberta. Grew up on a dryland wheat farm about 45 kilometers southeast of Lethbridge. I started questioning some of the farming practices that my dad was doing. Didn't get good answers. I took my first year at U of L and I was in pre-med. The Dean of Agriculture came down from Edmonton. He was such an inspirational speaker, and so I switched from pre-med to agriculture and go to U of A. The professors that I had, they said, don't be afraid to challenge conventional wisdom. Don't be afraid to push the boundaries. And I think that stimulated my interest in conservation tillage research.
It was absolutely sacrosanct that from a farming standpoint that you had to use a plow, turn the soil over, get the stalks and the roots decomposed, ready for the next year's crop.
The innovation that Wayne played a pivotal role in was finding a way to maintain high levels of yield without stirring the soil.
Directly injecting the seed into the last year's cropland where the stalks wouldn't be moved.
We had what we call black blizzards, regularly throughout the winter. Not enough cover on the land, so we have these dust clouds. They shut highways down. We just don't hear about those black blizzards anymore because we had to change our farming practices.
Soil erosion by wind is a particular problem. So the reasoning behind our minimum tillage system is basically to conserve moisture and prevent soil erosion.
And so the number of fallow acres have declined immensely in Western Canada. So that's been another positive effect of this new tillage process.
He was going against the grain at the time, so he had to do a lot of education and proving the science that he was developing until he kind of was part of that tipping point where people realized that, yeah, these findings were correct. There would be better yield, better soil.
I wasn't that popular with a lot of farmers, but I had a strong enough following, some of the local leaders that supported me, and they kept telling the government we need more of this kind of research. As an ag engineer, I had to try to develop equipment that could seed into that straw and residue and leave it standing. But once you have a few successes and the yields are great, people are wondering now, what was all the fuss about? Why didn't we do this many years earlier? And so like I say, it's 50 years now since we started this. Now 75% of all farmers use direct seeding, not just conservation tillage, direct seeding directly into the stubble, no cultivation whatsoever.
There was measurements done on soil quality as part of the overall impact of this new work. That started to show that carbon was being accumulated in the organic matter in the soil.
Soils are vast reserves of carbon. And if those soils lose carbon, that means more CO2 in the air. If, on the other hand, we can find ways of rebuilding soil carbon, that in effect takes atmospheric CO2 and puts it back in the soil, thereby reducing to some extent the climatic effects of excess CO2.
He was able to get this process of minimum tillage brought into the Kyoto Protocol that would count towards our carbon accumulation.
Canada is the only country in the world now that sequesters 10 million tons of CO2 annually because of the way we farm. Ultimately, I was appointed Director General of Environmental Health for I think 19 research centers across the country.
Which meant that the work across the country had to be integrated and tied together.
So often in the environmental research community, we tend to focus on the gloom and the doom scenarios, and goodness knows there are enough of those. This is a good news story. And through this award, I hope that we can elevate that sense of hopefulness that our society sometimes needs in the face of the coming global stresses.
There was a lot of challenges to some of the things that I was promoting early in my career, but that's what makes it more rewarding now when you see the adoption of conservation farming and how extensive it is across Canada, and to have played a role in that has been pretty exciting.